Hey everyone, what's the function here again? And we're here to talk about Windows 365
Or the app.
or the app. Well, what we really want to talk about is desktop virtualization, I think. But, mainly Windows 365 because we've been using it here for a few months and we've heard nothing but pretty much rave reviews from most of our staff on how great it is, how easy it is to jump onto a Windows 365 machine, get it set up. Of course, we're using autopilot. But this also extends past Windows 365 as we use both Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 in our environment. And, I was just like, let's talk about it. So, what's the function of Windows 365? Why don't you go ahead and tell me what you use it for?
I use Windows 365 as my core computing environment, right? Obviously, we're provided computers here, but there are situations where when you're working from home, the machine that you have there might work better for you in that environment, in that particular workspace. And it really gives you as a user the ability to work in a controlled and compliant environment and leverage personal devices without compromising security.
Yeah, and I love it because of what you just said at the end. So,
security,
security,
security.
security. Yeah, and I know Brian Dagan loves it too, and he'll get on here and I'm sure he'll talk about it. But, you know, it's great because we're able to take something, a virtual desktop, which people have kind of, we'll say, not liked in the past. There's been a lot of caveats to virtual desktops, things like video calls, video recordings, phone calls were really hard to do on virtual desktops before.
Yeah.
And now with Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop and Teams, gotta give a shout out to Teams for fixing this. We can fully have that pass through to the virtual desktop.
Yep. Yep. So, in my experience, I have a studio at home, and I've loaded into my Win365 environment. All my peripherals that are connected to my machine pass through, um, more or less seamlessly.
Yeah.
I've got my Logitech camera up there with the light beam at the
Yeah.
back that turns on automatically. It's great.
And it all just naturally works through Windows 365.
All through 365. I will say the only thing this is shout out to Teams. Maybe somebody knows, maybe somebody doesn't. The Stream Deck. So I've got a Stream Deck.
The Allegro Stream Deck. It is not a certified device, I don't believe.
Maybe not. I don't
They
know.
they took it off the certified list.
Well, either way. So that the Teams buttons for that particular device, the only things that I have not seemed to been able to get to
To
transfer
pass through.
pass through.
I mean, that's a pretty small one.
Yeah, I can just hit the
Yeah.
clap button.
Yeah, that's not too bad. And I mean, there are other great features that Windows 365 has. As far as security goes, we can immediately lock things down. No copy paste, no download, no anything like that. So documents cannot be transferred over to personal machines.
Yeah.
And this is a really big thing for us because if someone has a machine die, we have employees all over the country. And if someone's machine dies, it could be very difficult to get them a machine that day, right? And I'm not sending somebody to Best Buy to buy a machine because who knows? And, there's a lot of caveats there if something went wrong. And this is a problem for a lot of hybrid workforce or remote workforce. And this gives them an option. So our original, just so everybody knows, our original kind of structure of this was we built Azure Virtual Desktop to account for this. So we had Azure Virtual Desktop running. It was great. It was locked down. We were using it in these use cases of someone's laptop, desktop, something dying. And then we were like, well, let's try the Windows 365 version and see if it'll accomplish the same thing. And it turns out like it did really easily. And we were able to deploy it to a test group and remote users. Now we can run machines with way less resources. I mean, you can be running basically, I don't want to say it, but an iPad. You can. And you can connect to a Windows 365 machine and utilize this as an actual compute device. And I've tested it on this iPad right here. There's an iPad Pro, not the newest one that just came out like a day ago, but it is new. It's like one generation old now. And it works fine.
Yeah, but to that point though, you talk about using less compute resources. I mean, iPads now are still $1,800.
Oh, I know this is really beefy, but you could use something as simple as a Surface Go.
Surface Go laptop.
Yeah, you could use Surface Go laptop if you want the physical keyboard. And as soon as you connect, you're at like 30. I mean, on our machines, you're at like 32 gigs of RAM, like way more than we're going to shove in a laptop.
Yeah.
And guess what? Your laptop doesn't start overheating every time you're running something that eats up that 32 gigs of RAM. Because, some of us do, a little bit of development work here and there, and it kind of heats up the laptop. It gets it going. So it really improves that. It also extends the longevity of devices that you already have in your organization. And what I mean by that is we can easily upgrade a Windows 365 machine. We can keep it up to date. We can keep it in compliance. Intune is on it. And we can ensure that that machine has all the updates that it should have at any point in time. Versus a personal machine or even a corporate device where if someone's on a plane or, they're traveling, we might not be able to push a 0-day like vulnerability piece to it, right? Like we might not be able to update Defender. We might not be able to go in and block that user. Now, those are very edge cases and they'd have to not be connected to the internet. But really, this forces them to be in our protected zone.
In our protected bubble.
Yeah, our little FSI bubble of security and ensuring that compliance is in place. And with that compliance, it allows us to do really cool stuff like go in and put in conditional access policies. So if you don't think somebody should be accessing this remote desktop from, I don't know, outside the country, you block it. You don't allow them to access it. If you want to go through and you want to set up a policy that shuts the machine down or, requires them to sign in once a day or, there's lots of little caveats that we can put in there, but you can actually lock these machines down. And since they never leave your little environment, you can always push new policies down. You can always ensure that machine is going to be ready to go in a good, known, configured state at all times.
Yeah. I think another thing that people don't think about with these Win365 machines is region availability, right? So, in our situation, we have people that travel outside the country. When they log into that Win365 machine, we don't have to worry about
the region
that data is because they're still siloed in our area.
Exactly. And that was a big thing about the Azure Virtual Desktop too. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I think that they both have their use cases. And we love our Azure Virtual Desktop pool. It's still around. We still use it. It is a great failback method for our organization. But, we can set up a lot of these policies and keep our data sovereignty for the most part. And that's something that's key, especially in this changing threat landscape, which we talk about, all the time, that security is getting harder and people are just finding new ways. And you would think that putting a desktop in the cloud would lead to less security, but it actually leads to more security because no one's going to be able to steal a desktop out of the cloud. No one's going to be able to literally go into my office and pick this up and take it.
No one's breaking into my car.
Which is that literally happened.
Literally.
Someone broke into the car, stole your corporate laptop.
Yeah.
And let's say, that was like the beginning of COVID, right? Or
beginning of COVID. And shout out to DC police who still have not found my laptop.
That is a really good example of it's COVID. The laptop's gone. We're not going to get it back. What do you do in that scenario? Well, getting a laptop to you in COVID was not the easiest of tasks. Like just getting a laptop period was a task.
Parts were rare. Chips.
The chip shortage was going on. It was hard to, especially at the beginning, everybody was buying tons and tons of, I remember being at Micro Center and everybody just was rushing Micro Center to buy laptops. So this is a very easy way to hand out a secure workstation that can't be stolen, that you can lock data to, that you can even lock down what applications it's using. You can use things like Cloud App Security to really weigh in. So it is just overall a much better experience across the board. And, as a user of something, I've used it as well, not to the extent that you do. I think you use it, 4 days a week?
Every day of the week.
Every day of the week. Every day of the week. That is a testament to how good it is that you can use it daily.
Yeah. whether it's my personal computer that I'm using it on or whether it's my company issued
Yeah.
device, I'm using that Windows 365 machine. And the great thing about it, with one of the things I didn't really think about when testing it, was the simple fact of having the same desktop experience
Everywhere.
everywhere. Like I don't have to worry about, oh, what files did I have open on my personal computer that I need to go put on my work machine, and this back and forth drama that you used to have.
Or is it syncing on OneDrive on one machine and this
Yeah.
machine was offline, so it didn't sync? So once I get to the office, then it'll sync and then I'll open it. Or, God forbid, we're in the middle of working on something and you're like, hey, John, I got to run. I'm going to meet you at the office. And you've got that document open. Well, it's not going to be open in the same place at the same time, but this really allows that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a huge feature, a big plus, I think. Not to mention, if you're using it with things like Intune, I mean, automatic deployment, basically. We push all our apps through Intune. We're heavy users of Intune. So we even get that ability now. And then you can manage it centrally as well, which isn't even something we've talked about. But central management of Windows 365 for your entire fleet is possible. So you can actually go in and say, oh, I want to manage all 50 of these users at once. And it's one place. And while you get that in Intune, you still have 50 machines that you don't know if they're online. You don't know where they're at. You don't know geographically where they're located. So it creates a conundrum in some cases. And especially when we're talking about updates.
Mm-hmm.
I know that every once in a while, even in our own organization, I will walk around and I'll find somebody that's still in Windows 10. And maybe they just didn't get the upgrade push. Maybe their computer's too old. I don't know. But every once in a while we find it, right? And I'm always kind of like shocked. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, if we were on Windows 365, like I wouldn't have this as a concern. So you even get better fleet management. So it's overall just a win, I think. I haven't really seen, like you said, there's a very small issue that you're finding with it.
Yeah. And I mean, to our credit, we're testing this out as a first initial release in our org. So, there could be things that we could do better as far as policy implementation that we'll be looking into. But yeah, I mean, by and large, it's been a great experience. I mean, just down to the sheer fact of being able to launch it from task view in your host machine.
Yeah.
Like it integrates that deeply into your daily environment.
And then we haven't tested this yet, but it's something I really want to push, which is the Windows 365 boot, which allows you on sign in to immediately launch into your Windows 365 machine. And this is gonna be, we're gonna test it because I'd really like to see how it works. But this could be a feature to replace your entire fleet, basically. So you go in, and when they log in for the first time, it launches them into the Windows 365 machine. And then if it can't launch that, it fails back to standard machine authentication and getting in that way. But you could literally control from login where they're going, not even have to have them launch an app or retrain users, which is one of the only small caveats I'll put out there. There is a training aspect that has to be put into place here. You want to download the app, most likely. I mean, you can go to the website for it, but I think that downloading the app is still a little bit better experience. And if you're on iPad, it's a way better experience to download the app. But with Windows 365 on boot, you don't even have to retrain the user. They just log in and it's there.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a really good, use case for people that need that. I think one thing coming from conferences that we were just in that I thought of a great use case for Win 365. We always get into the presentation mode and you get that annoying pop-up with Teams message. Think about it. You're in your Win 365 environment. That's what you use to work in. Close it. Go to your normal desktop where you don't have anything open other than the presentation.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Also, we do a lot of demos and stuff. Yeah. And we present at the Microsoft Technology Center and these other places, and there's a roadshow coming up and all these other things. It's really difficult sometimes to get your machine ready to present. I have, I go through, and I hate to admit it, but every once in a while I have to clean all the desktop icons off. Like, that's my junk storage bin, basically. Yep. And then I just clean it, and then I toss it in literally a junk folder, and I move on. Yeah.
Same way.
So it is really like disturbing if you see me present, because like if I log onto my desktop and you see like a million icons, you're like, oh my God, what is he doing? But it makes it a nice little method. And it's also a great fallback. I love to travel and I want to ensure that I have a secure environment for our corporate data. And this allows me to take just my iPad, which has been my goal. All of these conferences we go to, it gets heavy. The backpack gets real heavy.
It gets heavy, it gets tight, crowded.
Yep.
Especially now with our like involvement with conferences, the more stuff we have to bring to them.
Every pound matters, as we found out. Every pound matters. And then even down to like, I have a Surface Studio and I love my Studio. Don't get me wrong. It's a great machine, but it is a bit heavier. It's, it doesn't sound that heavy, but when you compare it to like a regular Surface laptop, it's like 30% heavier or something. So it's a beast, and this is not nearly as bad. It's an iPad. And I can do everything on this. I can watch movies. I can, surf the internet. I can do this podcast.
Yeah.
So this can kind of become my travel PC, and I don't have to buy another Surface laptop. I can just use this and access my virtual desktop in Windows. And that to me is just phenomenal. Like I can't praise it enough, because it's a great feature, and it's great to be able to see something that works so natively that it just works. I don't know how else to explain it.
It's back to the Copilot magic.
Back to the Copilot magic. But I'm glad that we got to have this talk. Thanks for joining. Thanks for talking about, what's the function of Windows 365, because it's one of the 365 products. And I think there's tons of them out there that people just don't even know about.
Underrated.
Very underrated product. Even though it's like a massive product line for Microsoft, it is a very underrated product. So, thanks for joining again. And next time, join us and we're going to talk about some of these more underrated products that maybe you can learn about.